Hi, hello everyone. Last time we left off with, well, basically our player, and then we were just bounded player to basically game area. So this time we're actually going to do something different. We're going to do backgrounds and enemies as well. So, but first things first, I just want to restyle a bit this canvas element so that our game is somewhere in the middle, and for that we can just start with a div, then say style, text align, center. I'm not too happy how centering is done in HTML and CSS, but then again I'm not CSS guru, so let's do this, and then let's just say this as well. So that should center our game, and it looks nice now. So the next thing that we want to do is actually load our background. So for that I'm just going to create background in game folder. So for that we can just say export class background, and background is actually going to be well, they're really simple. So first of all I'm going to have private draw rect and then sorry about that. I'm going to need game width. Here, you're going to see how it works. Let's just code it first and then draw rect. This is fine. And then in update, we're going to have update. But I'm not going to do anything with update just yet. And we're going to have draw, but in draw, I'm actually going to take sprite renderer as an argument. The usual stuff, you know already how it goes. And actually, that reminds me, I need to load the background. So here in our content, we're just going to say public static background texture, and then we can load it somewhere here. This background texture, let's just see where it is. So if you look at it's in assets, backgrounds, and then I'm going to use this purple PNG backgrounds. So back to our content. So it kinda needs to be here. We're going to say backgrounds, and then purple. So this is for background. Then back to our background, so we can say content here, content.background texture. Here are no arguments. It's created now, and so we just need to create it in our main, where our engine is. Const background. We can just paste game bounds. That's quite alright. Ah, come on. Quick fix. Import it. We're going to update it. No. What are you doing? Background update. Paste delta time, and then draw it before the player. That's kind of important because if you remember, our engine is coded so that whatever is drawn is first is below, because we're drawing on top of it. So if we would to render background here, you're not going to see the player. So we can fix that later probably, or you can already fix it by passing Z and then using Z in as a third parameter of our vertex. But as you can already see, we're having background here. So next thing that we want to do is actually scroll this background. So let's do just and why are we scrolling? Well, basically it's going to give us this feeling of motion of the player. You're going to see what I mean in a second. So I'm just going to have some constant here, const. Alright, background, scroll speed, and I used this value, which is probably a good value, and then, so we're just going to increase our Y of background by background scroll speed, and then if it's out of bounds, I'm going to restart it for now, so that you can see how the effect works. So background is scrolling and then we restart it, but you can see this empty space. So this means that we actually need two backgrounds to scroll effectively. And so how will that work? Just give me a second, I'll show it right now. So it kind of works like this, right? So we have our screen. Then all right. So let's just say this is our screen. So we have background 1 here, and here it's background 2. So whenever our background, so let's say this is background, this is screen space, whenever our background reaches here, we actually want to restart it here. But there is also second background that's scrolling as well. Anyway, maybe I should not do it like this. It will be all clear. It's a bit difficult. I should have prepared it in advance, but so let's just add a second one. And here we're not actually going to do this. We're actually going to this drawRect2.y is equal to this drawRect.y minus game height. So this will always keep it in one background behind. And so if I was to draw the second one, you can see it's scrolling longer because there are two backgrounds as opposed to before. But then when we're out of the screen bounds, we can just do this kind of switch of our backgrounds, and then it should be fine. And it will scroll indefinitely. So we did this kind of scrolling effect, which is perfect. So that now with enemies. So we need to add enemies. So let's just create, and this is going to be interface because in the future you might want to add more enemy types. So I'm just going to create quickly interface, which is called enemy export interface enemy wrap. If I could type. All right, let's add that. And then just I'm going to need active. So our enemy can be active or not active. I'm going to need drawRect, update, and usual draw. Sprite render, void. So as usual, I just need to imports here. The second one as well. All right, that's for enemy. And to handle enemies, I'm going to have enemy manager. But first of all, let's just create our enemy class meteor enemy. And then it needs to implement enemy. All right. So here, so if you look at our sheet here, we have this kind of meteors, and I'm going to use big ones and medium ones. Small ones, not really. They're kind of not that fun to play with. So I already prepared the keys. So if you look at the sheet here, we had this somewhere we had something like asteroid or meteor, something like that. So I prepared the keys that we're going to use from the sprite sheet. So these are correspond to these names, right? And we had the system that loads sprite and gives us this information about the rectangle. So we're going to use that. So here I'm first going to code stuff that I'm going to need. So we're going to have something called active, which I already mentioned. It's of type boolean, true. Then we have drawRect. So we're going to have texture. And then we're going to have source rectangle. We're going to have something called, anyway, I'll leave it for later probably. Constructor. We're going to need game with game height, maybe, I'm not sure actually. But then we actually wanna use, so just give me a second. So we need to get this key, and so I can just say key is meteor keys. Then you can do match random times meteor keys.length. This will give you number between 0 and whatever the number of these keys is, and it's a floating point. That means it can result in something like 5.05, and if you floor it, it's going to be 5, and then you get the correct index. So that's how that works. So we're just going to have meteor sprite. We're going to get it from our content. So let's just add all missing imports. Then we need to assign this stuff. So select copy, draw rect copy. Perfect. So you need to copy this when you're assigning rectangles, otherwise you're going to modify the rectangle in content, so you don't want to do that. This speed, sorry, no, we're not having speed yet. Actually, we kinda need it. So let's just create two variables more here, min speed. So this will be our minimum speed of asteroid, and then let's have max speed, and I'm going to preset it to this, and then we can say this speed. So, and here I'm going to have speed equals to 0 for start. So what does this speed do? Well, what does this code do? Well, it's just going to place our random to space between 0.05 to 0.25. So this returns number between 0 and 1. You get, when you multiply it by 0.2 here, right, you get a number, well, 0.2, and then you just increase it between speed to get to space 0.05 to 0.25. All right, then in our update, I'm actually going to do this in enemy manager, this part. So we're just going to scroll downwards, then we can draw it, and I think we're good. So next thing is enemy manager. So let's do just that. Enemy. So we're going to export class enemy. And here we're also going to have some constants, and that's going to be const. So let's just create it every second or so. Let's create time to spawn, and we're going to pool our enemies. So what does that mean? It means just that we're going to keep small pool, sort of like cache, from which we're going to pull our inactive enemies instead of creating new ones. So we're going to fill the pool if we don't find any in pool, but if we do find it, we're going to reuse that. So it's just a sort of optimization of our game. And then if this time to spawn is greater, then not here, this is the wrong suggestion, spawn interval, then we're going to do this. So first of all, we need to reset the time to spawn, again with the wrong suggestion, and then we try to find that enemy from the pool where enemy is inactive. If it's not found, we're going to create a new one, but this is actually going to be meteor enemy. So this is implementation of enemy interface, and then we edit to pool, and if we do find it, we're going to set it to active. We can set draw rect to be, so if I was to look here, what does this do? Match random. I already mentioned returns the number between 0 and 1, and we just have to take our draw rect into account. So we're kind of going to create, if you look at this player, he has this certain width. So we just need to take from the end this width, right? So we're going to create enemy somewhere in this space between here and here, because as you remember, our well, if we have our rectangle, position is from the top left corner. So that's what that does. Then and we also have to create it in Y position. So again, we do this just so that we offset this rectangle because our position is here. So if we would create it with Y0, it would be here. But if we offset it for this height, right, minus, it's going to start somewhere here. So not in screen space, which is what we need. All right, we have created it. And then further, we're going to have update. Delta time. So here we can just say this time spawn was equals delta time. That's all right. We can try to this spawn enemy. We're going to call it each frame, and then we're going to go to our enemies, try to update it, and then so if our enemy, so direct y is greater than this name height, so it's we set it to not being active. So what does that mean? So let's say we have enemy here, it's fine, but if our enemy ends up being here, we set it to be not active, so false. False, it's not active anymore, so we can reuse it on the next frame. And then in draw, same thing as here, we just draw the enemy if enemy is active. So if I was to go to our main and create that enemy manager with our bounds, then I can update it and then I can draw it. Let's see. Okay, it might be that I have forgotten to add source rectangle, so let's do just that. It happens. This is kind of fun. So we're going to say here source, and then we're going to say this source rectangle. All right, that was embarrassing, but now it works. So the next thing that I want to add is just not that kind of really important feature, but I just want to add some random rotations here so that our gameplay looks a bit better. So let's do just that. And for rotations, I'm actually going to do it like, how am I going to do it? All right, let's just create private rotation is 0, private rotation speed. Do I need it? I actually don't need rotation speed, I don't care about it. And then we're just going to have rotation origin. And it's going to be vector2 from values. And it needs to be 0.5, 0.5. Why 0.5? Well, because we want to rotate from the middle of our sprite, right? If we pass 0, 0, this is the rotation origin. 0.05 is the rotation origin is centered. We already had that, and then here what I want to do is pass undefined for color, this rotation and this rotation origin. So nothing is going to happen because we're not increasing the rotation, but we're probably okay. I'm going to need rotation speed. Rotation speed is 0. Then all right, let's just move this out of the way. Give me a second while I figure out. Oh wow, sorry about this. Shortcuts. Sometimes I'm using Windows, sometimes Mac, and then my fingers are confused by the keyboard. So we're just going to set rotation speed to some random speed, and actually I'm going to do it like this at first. So we're going to use some number between 0.5, minus 0.5 and 0.5, and then let's just say this. Rotation plus equals rotation speed. Okay, that's too fast, so we can just scale this down, and I use a factor of, so this needs to be prioritized, so we're just going to place it in the brackets, and then we can just scale it down by some factor. As you can see, we already have our rotations, which is perfect. So this is where we'll stop. Next time we're actually going to deal with bullets and collisions. So we're going to do collision between player and these asteroids, and then bullet collisions between bullets and these asteroids or meteors. Anyway, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, like it, subscribe, and if you have any questions, you can ask on YouTube channel, or you can join the Discord as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time.